I know you were scheduled originally to fight Impa, correct? For the
Yes, I
middleweight
was.
title. So how did you, can you tell me a little bit about how you found out that that fight wasn't going to happen? Was it LFA that notified you, or did you kind of figure out when everything was happening?
Um, it was a little bit of both. Like I had heard rumors through some other fighters that that all the events were being canceled, and I know there was myself and a couple other guys who were on the card who were emailing Mark about what was going to happen with it. And he said, as at that time, it was like a week and a half before the fight. He had said that everything was good to go and da da da. And I think it was literally that Saturday is I just started drinking my distilled water because I was getting ready for my water cut, and that's when we got the email. I think it was sometime in the afternoon that everything had been canceled.
So,
So
I mean, at least you didn't start the weight cut, right? I mean,
not the hard part of it anyway. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right. Yeah, I mean, I know there were some fighters here regionally who found out about a few hours after their weigh-ins.
Oh,
So that was fun for them, I'm sure. But
yeah, that's
um,
brutal.
yeah, but I mean, it's awful for everybody because you were obviously expecting a paycheck. You'd been working for that um, all this time. So, what was the first like feeling that came over? Was it because I feel like maybe some people felt relief almost like I don't know. I don't know what the feeling is.
No, like I don't. So here's like I was talking with my wife about this the other day. Is that this this pandemic really hasn't affected me personally. Like we only have one friend that we both personally know that was affected by COVID-19. Other than that, it's just everything you see on the news and like so like it really hasn't hit me like is this thing real, right? So like what everyone at that time like when everyone was making this huge deal about it, like myself along with a few other fighters at my gym, like we were getting frustrated because it's like you said, like you train for 8 to 9 weeks and it's not just, I mean, yeah, the paycheck is a big thing, but for me, it's like this was my year to break into a bigger a bigger event like UFC, Bellator, ONE FC, whoever it was. But like I was really planning on this year to make my footprint. And with this, I mean, we're already getting ready to like we're halfway through the year.
Yeah.
It's just like damn.
And there's no end in sight, really. I mean, there is and there isn't. Obviously, the UFC is kind of paving the way for, MMA to come back, but at the same time, there's so many hoops that they have to jump through that maybe a promotion like LFA isn't going to have the means to do, obviously.
Exactly. Like you said, the bigger organizations are going to be able to do that, whereas like the lower ones, like the lower tier organizations that we depend on in order to build our way up to that, it's just they don't have the funds to do it, and you can't be mad at them.
Right.
At the same time, it's like, damn, what do you do?
I mean, and it probably held a little bit more weight too because it was a title fight. So there was
Yeah,
more at stake. And I feel like too, especially in LFA, because LFA is such a big feeder league to the UFC, that those title fights are almost like if you win this title, you're almost guaranteed your shot at the UFC, either Dana White Contender Series or just straight in because they don't stay champions long in LFA. They go from LFA champion to almost the next fight UFC. So was that kind of in your mind too as well? Like,
it was like it was. I wasn't letting it get in front of me though. Like I was strictly focused on that fight with Impa. Like this is probably one of the like top three, one of the most exciting fights that I was looking forward to. Like I think stylistically, he and I match up really well. Um, I think his athleticism versus just my abundance and skill in regards to like how long we've been in this, it would have made for a really great fight. And it was a bummer that it didn't happen. Like you said, losing that opportunity for the title. I'm hopeful that when LFA gets back up and running, I'll hopefully be like one of the first people they're calling. But other than that, it's just yeah.
and so, and on that note, they haven't told you. I mean, obviously, we don't know when anything's coming back, but they haven't said when we come back, this fight's being picked up and put somewhere else, or you haven't really heard anything from LFA as far as.
No, not as of yet. Like all like the last email that we got was from Mark, and it was just saying that everything right now is indefinitely postponed, that they didn't have any dates lined up or anything. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard because there are lots of fighters that didn't get to fight, and nobody really knows what's going to happen. But on that note too, would you have, with the UFC, it's kind of controversial that they're continuing on. I think, especially when it was going to be in California, now it's in Florida, and things have calmed down a little bit. But would you have continued to fight during this if they had offered that to you?
In a heartbeat. Absolutely in a heartbeat. That's why, I don't know if you saw it, but before they had technically gotten shut down, right? They had put out that post to managers saying that if you have any active fighters, we need their weight roster. I was messaging my manager that night, like, hey, let's go. Like, I'm ready. Like, I've been off for like a week and a half. Like, I'm dying. I'm still training. And we pushed for it, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out.
Right. Yeah, and I think somebody had posted that they received like 500 emails overnight about that. So I thought that was kind of
Yeah.
crazy how many fighters were willing to just jump in at the moment's notice for their shot at the UFC. And I think too, going back to your fight with Impa, and what it had at stake was, technically he doesn't have a UFC win in the big show, but he does have a little bit of a UFC win because he did win at Contender Series. So a win over him would have meant a lot more than just another LFA fighter. Is that how you would have felt about it, or?
Exactly. Like he had a good win on the Contender Series. But like I said, I've studied him a lot, and like he's a great fighter. He's super athletic, but I don't think he's really been pushed. And that's, if he would have fought me, like that's where he would have seen it. Like it wouldn't have been like a fast-paced fight. There would have been a lot of strategy to it, and just, on the feet, on the ground, wherever it would have went, like he would have seen a very comfortable Daniel fighting, and it's just a bummer it didn't happen.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have a mutual friend who kind of explained to me that he was helping you a little bit with your mind game over your last
You're
fight.
talking, Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
can you tell me about that? Because it sounded like that was a really big focus in your last camp.
it was. It's actually been that way for the past three or
Okay.
four camps. My last loss to Ian Heinisch. I went into that fight unprepared mentally. Physically, I was fine, but mentally, like I had already beaten myself before I had stepped in there, and I kind of knew that, and I allowed certain bad habits to follow me into that fight. So after that one, he sat down with me. We talked a little bit, and I liked the way that he was explaining things. It's not like your typical mental coach where it's like you're gonna go in there, you're gonna beat this guy up, like confidence. Kai has a different outlook on things. His mentality is definitely, he has a beautiful mind, and the way he explained it to me and the way we talk in our sessions, he's able to dial me in to where everything else just floats away, and I'm focused on one goal during that moment. And we do it during sparring, we do it during our jiu-jitsu lessons, we do it before, during, and after the fight. So
That's cool. I mean, I've spoken it. I mean, we met I think at one of your fights. I think he was out I was just killing time beforehand, and he sat down. We just started chatting. I don't even remember what it was, but you're right. He has this mind that's very unique, and he just like has this way of kind of like the world just closes in, and it's just like you
yeah.
don't see anything else. You don't focus on anything else, and that's very unique. I think that's really cool that you were able to kind of harness that into your game plan.
Yeah, no, he's very carefree, and I love that about him. When I first met him some 8 or 9 years ago, he had come over to my older business at the time, which was Grace Fighting Systems, and came in as a jiu-jitsu student, and we instantly hit it off. And I remember the first time we hung out, I was driving in his car with him, and it was this piece of crap car, right? Like things should have never been on the street, honestly. But no AC, windows down, and we're driving. I think we were going to get food, and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh man, I can't find my wallet." Don't worry about it. It's just gonna pop up. And like I'm thinking about it, I'm like, dude, any other person would lose their mind, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm one of those people. And he's just like, no, it'll come, and I'll be damned if he found it. It's really cool to see that actually just come to reality.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And you also have, I noticed on your Instagram you have plant-based. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about that. It seems like that's something important to you.
Yeah, my wife and I, bored one night, we were going through Netflix and we came across the Game Changers documentary, and we were like, shit, all right, let's go. So Nora put it on, and we started watching it. And I just like the more and more we got into it, I was like, holy crap, like I'm really starting to like this. Um, so once we got done with it, we went to their website, we read a little bit more, and then she and I decided, like, all right, we're gonna do this. And we did a 2-week trial just to see how we would feel, and I instantly noticed at the end of the second week that like my body was healing faster. I had more energy throughout my training sessions. I was waking up. Um, I was waking up hungry, but not like overly famished. Um, it was like my eating habits were easily corrected. I was getting enough carbohydrates from all of my natural sugars from fruits and whatnot. I was still able to find all the protein that I need from all the lentils and tofu products that I was using, and like I really do like it. It's it's nice not to feel heavy after a big meal.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I know a lot of fighters are started transitioning to that route, that diet. So I definitely should check out that documentary you're talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's not like I'm not strictly plant-based, right? There are things that I can't, like I can't drink soy milk. I can't do almond milk. They both taste disgusting to me. So I still drink milk. I still have eggs every now and then. But for the most part, I want to say about 75% I'm plant-based, and about the other 20 to 25%. Sometimes I go back between dairy and poultry.
And you said it was a while back. When did you start this? Have you had a fight camp and a fight since then, or like have you noticed?
No, the when was it? It was at the end of why can't I remember his name? The second to last guy I just fought. Who was it, Amy?
Oh God, I'm the worst. I had to follow you.
Chris Harris,
I
Kyle.
feel like Chris Harris was no, I think you're
Second to last.
second to last. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it was right after that camp is when we watched it, and then I started it, and we had like a solid month and a half before the Impa fight got announced to us, and then we went right into it. So
Well, speaking of your fight, I was just looking at your Tapology, and I think I shot your last two fights, and I didn't even recall your last fight. You had a 51 second rear naked choke.
48 seconds.
Really? It's at
It was
51 on
48. I
Tapology.
know.
I'm going to email
48 seconds.
Tapology. 48 seconds.
Yeah,
I knew it was quick.
and the only reason I know that is because who was the undercard that night behind me?
I have the worst memory when it comes to these fight cards. They all
I
know.
am horrible with names. It's funny, is like I know him, like we're friends, and I'm horrible with names. But he's from Tucson, 10th Planet Tucson. He's
Burchak.
fought me. Thank you, Burchak. My
Yes.
God, I knew that.
Yes.
But yeah, we after right, like it's not like I get hit in the head for a living. Um, no, after the fights were done, like he found me and he was like, hey, he's like, why is it always a contest to see who can finish a fight faster? Because I think he had like 50 or 51 seconds.
Yeah, they probably
So,
mixed. I'll have to look on his and see if he got the 48-second credit. And
yeah, but yeah, that's how I know that.
I do remember that night because that submission was a standing rear naked choke, correct?
Uh-huh.
And it
Yep.
was right on the pillar where I was. So I was looking at the top of their heads and I'm like, what's going on? I can't see anything. So yeah, that was a good night. I think that was the last time I went out to Arizona.
Yeah, it was a fun night.
Yeah. So I guess the last question I have for you is for people who haven't seen you fight yet, what would you say that your fighting style is? I mean, I looked at your record. There's a bunch of submissions, but would you would you say you're a submission specialist, or would you just say that's just what has come your way?
No, I think that's 100% accurate. I think primarily you will always see my jujitsu shine, especially in MMA, because I adore jujitsu. It's not I had an early obsession with it when I was 14 years old. I think my first fight that I saw was Bas Rutten versus some Japanese fighter in the UFC, and I instantly found love. And then I started watching Pride, and then I came across Sakuraba and Genki Sudo and all these catch wrestlers that were using jiu-jitsu to beat the famous Gracie family, and it was just I fell in love with it. So that's all I did for a solid 9 years was just I focused on jiu-jitsu, and and then I started evolving my stand-up game. I had boxed earlier on in my life with my dad and my grandpa, and um, I never took really like a big interest in it up until my early 20s when I found Muay Thai. And you know, but if I had to say, to everyone that hasn't seen me fight, like whether it's on the feet or if it's going to the ground or if I'm even in a defensive mode, like you're always going to see an exciting fight. Even when I get my ass kicked, like you're always going to see an exciting fight. And that's one of the benefits of watching me fight.
Yeah, I mean, from experience, I think I've seen 3 or 4 of your fights. They're definitely always exciting.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. And then just one last thing, can you let everybody know where to find you on social media?
Of course. On Instagram, I have Daniel Demigod Madrid. On Twitter, it's Daniel DG Madrid. My Facebook is my athletes page, which is Daniel Demigod Madrid. Everything follows the same pattern. But those are my 3 major ones that I use.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, and you'll have to let me know as soon as you know when that fight gets rebooked, because I'm sure it will.
I
But
definitely will, Amy, and I appreciate you taking the time. Again, this is a blessing, and thank you for this. I really appreciate it.
thank you. Have a good day.
You